Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1990's Represent. Again, we are in our first cycle of 1994, and this is a movie episode. And this episode, we're talking about Speed, the iconic action classic about a bomb on a bus. And like this is as silly as that sounds. That's basically the whole concept of the movie is that the bus can't go below 50 miles an hour. Once it hits 50, bomb gets armed. If it goes below 50, it explodes. That's basically the entire concept of the movie. There's, of course, other stuff in there, too. But just like an on paper idea where it sounds really silly, but then amazingly well done in execution. So it's an action classic. I never saw it in theaters initially. First time I saw it was off of HBO, like a year later. Had my parents like record use a VCR to record a tape of it. And remember, my friend came over. I watched the movie for the first time with him, and we really enjoyed it. And I watched that tape, like over and over again for like many years before eventually picking it up on DVD. And I want to say the DVD that I have came out in 2002, and I have that DVD copy still. It's right here. This is the which one is this? The 5-star collection. I think I have like Die Hard 3 like this as well. But a very good collect DVD set. Just has a ton of extras on the second disc there. Video quality obviously not as good as streaming or Blu-ray, but you get you get audio commentary from the director. You get a bunch of different like extended scenes, a ton of extra content. So a pretty good version of the movie. And then one of my best Blu-ray finds, I found this at Walmart actually, one of those $5 DVD/Blu-ray bins. So I ended up getting the movie on Blu-ray and actually watched it off of Blu-ray for this video. Looks amazing in Blu-ray. Sound is amazing. Got some notes here about the movie, and then we'll get into it from there. Speed, first released June 7th, 1994. I think that was the premiere. And then premiered in the rest of the United States on June 10th, just a few days later. Directed by Jean de Bont. And the cool thing with him is he was the director of photography on the original Die Hard. So I remember watching Die Hard years ago and recognizing his name. I mean, much after seeing this. And at Christmas time, or like in December of last year, a local theater played Die Hard, and I remember seeing his name again there and being like, oh yeah, that's the director of Speed. It like totally like fits and makes sense. He kind of like was like cutting his teeth on being the director of photography, and then basically a few years later became the director of Speed. Also directed Twister. I think maybe directed Speed 2. Speed 2 is not very good, but it has its charms in ways. Like Willem Dafoe is really good at it. But yeah, directed by Jean de Bont. Again, worked on Die Hard prior to this. It grossed $350 million off of the estimated budget was about between 30 and 37 million. So definitely made a ton of money. Was actually the fifth highest grossing film of 1994. A year later, at the Academy Awards, the 1995 Academy Awards, it picked up 2 Academy Awards for sound, and you could definitely hear it on the Blu-ray where the sound editing, I think it was sound editing and sound mixing, very well done. Especially with just the effects of like the bus, like making the sound effects, all the effects of like especially when Keanu or Jack and Harry are climbing around in the elevator, you have like the kind of like echoing, like clanking metal and all that. Just very good sound design. Apparently, it's partly based on another movie called Runaway Train, as well as a Japanese movie called The Bullet Train, where it had Runaway Train just because the train is out of control. I remember there was I think it was called Unstoppable, which with Denzel Washington and Chris Pine, that came out. I want to say it was like 2011, maybe. Don't remember exactly what year that was. But very similar concept to where like they're on one train, there's another train that's like basically completely out of control, and a lot of the action in that movie takes place on those trains. I haven't seen the Runaway Train or the Bullet Train, but doing my research, it said that the writer had based a lot of Speed off of those 2 films. Initially, I think in the original script, they wanted the bus to destroy the Hollywood sign. I'm not sure how it would even have gotten up there, but they rework that to be it basically like crashes through. I think it's Hollywood Boulevard, right near the Chinese Theater. But we'll get to that once we actually start breaking down the plot to the movie. John McTiernan, I think, was originally offered this movie, but then turned it down because I think he thought it was too much like Die Hard. But interesting thing was that like when he worked on Die Hard, he was working with John DeBont, and John DeBont basically ended up directing this film. Like I said, thought too much like Die Hard. Apparently, Michael Bay also wanted to take a crack at this movie and didn't. Paramount, it was offered to Paramount at one point, and they passed on it because they didn't think the audience would be on board with a movie that is set primarily on the bus. But then when Fox picked it up, they made some changes and basically said it's fine that most of the movie takes place on the bus, but we need some scenes off, like outside of the bus, to kind of like tie it all together. And I think that's maybe where some of those scenes, like the kind of like the elevator heist, or that's not really a heist, but the guy's like the elevator ransom bit, maybe some of the other stuff like on the subway. So there are scenes in like areas of the movie that do not take place on the bus, but for the most part, it's mostly like maybe like 85% I would say on the bus. But it is interesting because when I was watching it on Blu-ray just today, that it's a good 25 minutes before you even get to the bus because you have the entire elevator ransom, you have the kind of like the party for the police where Jack and Harry are getting like medals. You have that. You kind of, or not. That's not really the party. That's like more like the ceremony. And then it goes to a scene where they're at like a bar, like celebrating. And then you go to the scene where Jack is getting like coffee the next morning, and then the first bus explodes. By the time that happens, it's still about 25 minutes into the film. So there are definitely like a lot of stuff in the kind of like the beginning and the end that are definitely not on the bus, but probably the stuff on the bus is probably the best stuff in the film. Has an excellent soundtrack. Let me actually pull that up because I think the day after I watched this off of HBO and we watched the VHS of it, I went out and bought the soundtrack. I have it around here somewhere, but I think it's probably in a box somewhere. But let's go bring up the soundtrack listing here because I had it listed earlier. The soundtrack again it's an excellent soundtrack. But we pull that up and we can go right to it. Or here we go. So there was a soundtrack and the score. So I only have the soundtrack, or the like movies inspired by kind of thing. And we have, let's see, 12 songs on here, or 12 tracks for about 50 minutes. Track 1 is Speed by Billy Idol. That plays at the end of the film. That's a really good one. Track 2 is A Million Miles Away by I think it's called the Plimsouls. Track 3 is Soul Deep by Gin Blossoms. Then we have track 4 is Let's Go for a Ride by Cracker. We go track 5 is Go Outside and Drive by Blues Traveler. Track 6 is Crash by Rick Ocasek. Ocasek, I guess I'm pronouncing that. Track 7 is Rescue Me by Pat Benatar. It's probably one of my favorite tracks off the album as well. I'll probably say Speed by Billy Idol and Rescue Me are probably my favorites. Track 8 is Hard Road by Rod Stewart. Then you move into track 9 is Caught by Carnival Strippers. Track 10 is Cars, like a remix by Gary Newman. So kind of funny that he's on there. Track 11 is Like a Motorway by Saint Etney. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Saint Etney. And track 12 is Mr. Speed by Kiss. So a pretty good collection of just very like mostly rock songs, some alternative kind of stuff as well, but a pretty good soundtrack. I did a video like last year, I think, of just that they don't make soundtracks like they used to. If I can find it, I'll leave a link in the description to check that out. But yeah, just the kind of like 1990s movie soundtracks were really, really good. Like this one, you had like the Batman Forever soundtrack is also amazing. The Armageddon soundtrack and so on. So I'll leave a link in the description to check that out because I think it's an interesting kind of thing where movie soundtracks like that kind of aren't really done like that anymore, with the exception of maybe kind of things where it kind of ties into the film like Guardians of the Galaxy because all that music is on Star-Lord's kind of Walkman or Zune, whatever version of the movie you're watching. But it has an excellent soundtrack, and now we're going to just break down the plot of this movie. So basically, plot is basically there's a bomb on the bus. Once it hits 50 miles an hour, it arms itself. Once the bus drops below 50 miles an hour, the bomb explodes. There was a really good, very funny bit on the 90s cartoon, The Critic, that was kind of spoofing this. Instead of it being speed, it was speed reading, and it's one of the things I remember most from that show. There's like a few like specific episodes, but this is probably the one I remember the most. Is Dennis Hopper's character gives Keanu Reeves a book, and he's like I said, it's called speed reading, and he's like, if you this book is going to explode if you read less than 50 words a minute. And Keanu, it literally is like a 5 second gag. Keanu Reeves is like, Jack and Sally went to the beach, kind of like that. It kind of like in his kind of delivery, or his like very like a Keanu Reeves cadence. And the bomb, like I'm about to say, the book just explodes. So one of my favorite bits on The Critic was speed reading. But anyway, yeah. So bomb on the bus, gets armed at 50 miles an hour, blows up if it goes below 50. That's the basic concept. But then in the beginning, we actually have the movie starts off in an elevator shaft, and you have like the credits. And Howard Payne, played by Dennis Hopper, is doing some repairs on an elevator. Guy comes in, he's like, "Hey, like nobody called this into me. What are you doing here? I need to see like a work order." And he pulls up like the work permit thing, and then stabs a guy through the ear with like a screwdriver. Blows up the elevator, or blows the cables, I should say. And then basically the elevator's in free fall. The brakes lock in, and there's bombs on the brakes as well. So basically, he's demanding. He's like, "Hey, give me a ton of money, or I blow the brakes off this elevator." You have one of these iconic scenes. It's just like silly because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's just because it's like a cool action shot. Is you see all the police and SWAT teams start arriving in the car that Jack Traven and I think it's Harry Temple are driving. That's Keanu and Jeff Daniels' character. Like literally goes over this jump and like lands. It's really silly, but it like definitely like works for this movie. But yeah, they get inside and they figure out like where the elevator is, and it's basically just Jack and Harry. That's when they start discussing the whole like pop quiz. Like this movie is infinitely quotable with the whole pop quiz, hot shot. Yeah, but I'm taller, stuff like that. Like great quotes. But that comes up, and Howard Payne is like listening in on this, and they devise a way to basically go to the roof, get a winch, and like off of like a crane, and like hook it to the elevator. So if it does get blown up, or if the bombs on the brakes get detonated, the elevator, like that thing will hold the elevator. So they do that. Basically, Howard figured out what's going on, blows up the elevator, goes into free fall. They eventually rescue everybody off of the elevator, and then you get into the scene where basically Howard Payne is at that building too, and you get the scene where there's like a showdown between Jack and Howard, who now has Harry as a hostage, and it's like shoot the hostage. So he shoots Jeff Daniels in the leg. Howard like escapes, blows up, presumed dead, pretty much. And then cuts to the scene where they're at their kind of like police ceremony, getting their medals, and then cuts to and you actually see that Howard Payne is still alive, or he's watching this on TV. Cuts to a scene at a bar party. They're kind of celebrating, and then they're like, and Keanu's like, he's like, I think forget exactly what the line was. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, we're good, and Jeff Daniels is like, no, we're lucky. Like luck will run out eventually, kind of thing. Next day, you see a bus pull up to a restaurant, and Jack is in there getting some coffee, like a muffin, and another bus driver comes in, and they kind of just joke for a little bit. They go outside, and the bus explodes, and then you hear this payphone ringing where he's like, hey, Jack, if you clean up all the bus driver's teeth, do you think they'll give you another medal? And that's when the actual plot hits with the bus. He's like, there's a bomb on a bus, get on the bus. Like, he's like, if it goes below 50, it's going to explode. Sandra Bullock, this movie pretty much put her on the map. The movie that I had watched prior to this one for this series was Demolition Man, and that was the first movie I saw with Sandra Bullock in it. But Speed was definitely the movie that basically kind of like pushed her like into like the stratosphere as far as like her career definitely took off like because of Speed, more so than Demolition Man. But yeah, Demolition Man was like again first movie I saw of her. But yeah, this movie definitely kind of put her on the map. But she's on this in this movie. She's basically just a passenger on the bus. All the passengers on the bus are really cool. You have Alan Ruck playing. Don't know the character's name. He's basically a tourist. One cool thing with this movie is that it gives everybody on the like most of the people on the bus, not all of them. Some of them are just kind of background characters. A little bit of something to do. So like Alan Ruck's like, I'm a tourist. I've been to the airport, and I'm like, I was at the airport. Why are we back here again? You have Ortiz, who's like I'm assuming like a construction worker. He's got some moments. You have the one I don't know the character's name, or if they even named the character who accidentally shoots the driver. So Sam is a driver. You have Helen. She's the one that tries to get off the bus, and like Howard Payne detonates a smaller bomb that basically kills her. But anyway, Sandra Bullock gets on the bus, and then Jack Traven is trying to track the bus down, finds it, um, comes up part of the freeway where there like he gets blocked off. He gets out, tries to chase after the bus, tries to get it on it. They don't let him on. And then one of the best scenes in the movie. I don't know if the character's name is called Toon Man, but I always just call him Toon Man because that's like what his license plate says. Played by Glenn Plummer. I think he's credited as like Jaguar owner or something like that. But Keanu basically hijacks his car, tells him to write a note that says "bomb on bus," holds it up, and gets stuck to the windshield. And then the bus starts slowing down. He's like, "Hey, don't slow that bus down. Like, I got to get on there and do this thing." It's just all these scenes are just so well shot because like you have the scene of like the speedometer speeding up. You have the scene, and then it cuts to Keanu trying to get on the bus and driving. You have it then cuts to, like it's just very like suspenseful and intense and like it's awesome. But Keanu eventually gets on the bus. Toon Man is like, whoa shit, and then like crashes the Jaguar into like those like water barrels to stop runaway trucks, basically. He shows up again. He's got a kind of funny cameo in Speed 2, even though Speed 2 is like pretty bad, like really bad by comparison. But he's in there as well. Like he's got like a really cool cameo. So yeah, Toon Man is awesome. Love that character. Like just a great like kind of like character that he's in like one or two scenes and then that's it, or it's basically one extended scene. But Keanu gets on the bus, tells him what's going on. The driver gets shot, so then Sandra Bullock's character Annie has to then drive the bus pretty much the rest of the movie. And they get on there. There's scenes intercut between him trying to talk to Harry about who they're like. Harry like it basically cuts between the bus, the police station, uh, shots of Howard in like an apartment or some kind of hideout watching all this unfold, and then you have Joe Morton who plays Mac, who's basically their superior commanding officer in the police force. But the bus is then basically just being put. They're like, cool, we're in the city now. We need to get out of the city. So there's a bunch of like cool like action scenes there. They eventually get to a freeway, and this is when they eventually let the driver off, and then Helen tries to get off. Like so, like Howard Payne is like, I'll let one person off, and they're like, we gotta get the driver off because he's been shot. So they get him off, and then Helen tries to get off. Don't know the actress's name, but I've seen her in a lot of stuff. I remember seeing her in Crazy Heart with Jeff Daniels, like that was like in 2009 or so. But she gets off, and like a smaller bomb gets detonated, and she gets killed. But then they eventually try to, because there's these helicopters that are watching. So Howard is basically like one step ahead, pretty much the entire movie. So it's pretty. He's got a pretty good plan laid out. But they then get to LAX, and they go there, and that'll at least get the helicopters out of the way because it's restricted airspace, and the helicopters can't fly around in there. But going into LAX, the tires get shredded at one of the security checkpoints. So now we're driving around with tires that are basically like deteriorating. Like the more they drive on them, they're just like chunks of rubber are flying off and causing the bus to kind of move randomly and stuff like that. But they eventually let Keanu Reeves' character off. They let Jack off. He tries to dismantle the bomb. They can't figure it out. They eventually figure out that Dennis Hopper's character, Howard Payne, is like a former police officer, not from LAPD, but he's like he's drawing disability from there. They basically find out where he lives. They go to his house. But of course, again, Howard being one step ahead, the house is rigged to explode. Basically, it kills off Harry, Jeff Daniels' character. And then Keanu's like really upset about that, of course, or Jack is really upset. But then they eventually realize that there's a camera in the bus, and they have a local news truck basically like pick up on the signal. They record a tape off of that, and then they loop that tape back to Howard. So it's supposed to look like they haven't gotten it off the bus when they have, but then like there's like a glitch where like somebody's bag is like they're holding their bag, their like purse, and then in the next scene it's gone, and then it's back, and then it's like it loops, and then it's gone again. So then Howard realizes that okay, like I've been had here. The bus eventually does explode because they get everybody off. Jack and Annie basically like get off by like kind of like laying on like an access panel, and it kind of just they drop it under the bus and it goes away or gets away, and then the bus explodes. But then that's not where the movie ends. The movie then it goes to downtown LA where the money drop off is, and Howard Payne basically puts on a police uniform, kidnaps Annie, and has the money now. And the reveal of it, so you basically see Keanu Reeves knock a trash can over, sees that there's a hole in the ground that goes through it, and then you see like somebody moving like in the shadows, and he pulls the gun, he's like, freeze, freeze. And the reveal that was actually Sandra Bullock's character was really cool, because like you don't initially see that it's her until like you see her wearing like the bomb like vest or whatever it is, and then Howard shows up with the remote detonator thing, like if he calls it a stick, because like you pull it in, if you're holding it, sorry, excuse me, if you're holding the trigger in, it's not detonating. If you let go of it, it detonates. But he eventually gets her onto a train and then kills the driver. Has a fight with Keanu Reeves like on top of the train, and that's where basically the iconic he's like, I'm smarter than you, Jack, I'm smarter than you, and Jack basically pushes his head up and gets decapitated by like a light in the subway tunnel, and he's like, yeah, but I'm taller. The movie just has iconic just lines like that. Eventually the bus does crash, then crash through like the kind of like part of this tunnel that's incomplete. It's interesting because there's an incomplete gap in the freeway that they had to jump, and then there's an incomplete track in the subway. So it kind of like, it's cool that those kind of parallel each other a little bit. But bus crashes through, and then Annie and Jack like start like celebrating and be like kissing and all that kind of stuff, and then that's when the movie ends. But it's just an iconic action film. I don't want to make this video too long, so like I did a video last year of when I traveled to LA. I went to Venice Beach and downtown LA, and visited several filming locations from the movie, like the scene at the beginning where the first bus explodes. I was kind of like around there, had breakfast at the restaurant that Jack gets his coffee and muffin at. It's called the Firehouse. It's a pretty good breakfast spot in Venice. Went there and then went to downtown LA, which the gas company tower, which is the building from the beginning of the movie, is, and then also just right down the road from that tower is Pershing Square, which is kind of where like the money drop off point at the end of the movie is. Again, I'm not going to go through those shooting locations for this video because it'll probably just drag it out, probably longer than it needs to be. But I will leave a link in the description where you can check that video out, because I did a video on all those filming locations last year. So it would basically just be the same video again. So I'll leave a link where you can check that out. But that's going to do it for this video. Speed is like one of my favorite action films. It just, like on paper, the concept sounds really silly, but like I said, in execution, it's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's definitely worth checking out. But that's going to do it for this video. We'll be back again in a few days. Probably be doing a video game. That video will wrap up our first cycle of 1994, and then we'll be into 1995, and then the rest of the decade after that. But that's going to do it for now. So thanks for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.